Discussion Post and Peer Response 17, Chapter 24. W. E. B. Du Bois. The prompt. Reflect on Du Bois's concept of double consciousness. What does it mean for African Americans? The chapter goes quite a bit into the disagreement between Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. They had very different beliefs about the education for African Americans and the way to confront society. Du Bois says, well, he came from New England, and he was born free and from a family of freed African Americans from long before the Revolutionary War. And Booker T. Washington was from the South, lived in the South, and was born a slave. They had different approaches. But the double consciousness is not between these two. Du Bois was a part of white society almost as much as he was of black society growing up. He went to integrated schools, he lived in an integrated community, and he had the benefits of living in the United States as a United States citizen. But then again, he had a loyalty or an affinity towards his race, the African American people. And so there's culture and racial affinity. And so he was American and part of that society, and he was also part of the black society. So what does it mean for African Americans today? Do they have something similar? Now consider your own racial, ethnic, or class experience. Have you felt that you were living in a double consciousness in two worlds? Usually I have not, because, as a white male, I've been in the dominant group in the United States. But then in one of my previous lives, I was a linguist, anthropologist, missionary in South America. And as a missionary and as an anthropologist and as a linguist, you do your best to identify with the people you work with or that you study. In my case, it was study for my dissertation, but it was living with as my job and my career. We lived in South America, and we would live in a town where they spoke Spanish and where the kids went to Peruvian schools and my kids went to Peruvian schools. And then there would be times where we would live in the Indian villages, in the Ashaninga villages, and we would be part of that village at that time, and my children would go to the village school in that area, and we would socialize with the people there, our neighbors, and we tried to become as much a part of that society as we could. And so on the one hand, we were a small nuclear American family with connections to our friends and our country. And then on the other hand, we had a connection to the people that we're surrounded by. And at times it was hard to be fully conscious of both worlds. And sometimes we slip in and out of the other. And ideally, you want to become culturally and linguistically like the whatever group you're with. In other words, I wanted to be able to think in Spanish, I wanted to think in Ashaninga, and I wanted to have reactions, cultural reactions and behaviors that were consistent with either Peruvian or with the Ashaninga, depending on where we were living at the time. And so that was a great experience for me and has greatly enriched my views on just about everything. Now, what problems does that feeling create if you do have a double consciousness? And how can these problems be resolved? I'm not going to give any hints in regards to my own, but I was trying to give this illustration to help you along if you're trying to think of something similar. If you have any questions, please give me a call.